All right, are the days of big upfront payouts and bonuses for LIV over? There's a new report that just dropped that seems to indicate that they are. And more importantly, if they are, what does that really mean going forward for the league in general?
Number the LIV Golf collapse nobody saw coming? Something just happened that should terrify every golfer who abandoned the PGA Tour for Saudi money. Brooks Koepka, one of LIV's biggest stars, just walked away from his contract with a full year remaining. We're talking about walking away from nearly $20 million. And he's not the only one making moves behind the scenes. Agents are fielding panicked calls, lawyers are combing through contracts, and whispers in locker rooms paint a picture nobody at LIV wants you to see. Financial documents just revealed losses totaling $1.4 billion since 2022, and the bleeding hasn't stopped. So what's really happening inside LIV Golf, and why are their most valuable players suddenly exploring escape routes? When LIV Golf exploded onto the scene back in 2022, it detonated like a bomb. The league was handing out contracts that made jaws hit the floor worldwide. $100 million deals, $150 million agreements, and rumors of certain players banking north of $300 million, all guaranteed up front. Private jets to every tournament, prize pools so massive they made PGA Tour winnings look like pocket change. The biggest names suddenly faced offers they couldn't refuse, and the second they accepted, absolute chaos erupted. The PGA Tour came out swinging hard. Lifetime bans were threatened, tour cards got stripped overnight, friendships that had lasted decades shattered instantly. Icons like Rory McIlroy took it as personal betrayal. The entire golf world split down the middle while lawsuits started flying in every direction. Through all that madness, LIV players kept repeating the same line. They were set for life. The money was completely guaranteed. This league wasn't going anywhere, ever. They believed it with absolute conviction, and who could blame them? When your paychecks are backed by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, a financial monster worth over $700 billion, going broke sounds impossible. The fund generates roughly $1 billion every single day just from oil exports. With that backing, failure seemed like a concept that didn't exist. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. From the very first tournament, the financial math never actually made sense. The league was torching cash at a rate no legitimate business could sustain. When analysts finally crunched real numbers, the results were terrifying. LIV's yearly expenses, covering travel, player guarantees, team operations, marketing, and production costs, were reportedly hitting hundreds of millions every year, while barely any revenue flowed back in. Television ratings weren't matching the hype, sponsors remained skeptical, ticket sales were practically a rounding error compared to mountains of cash being burned. Some players brushed it off, saying the fund had endless money, but others started noticing shifts, private jets getting scaled back quietly, events being trimmed, whispers circulating that budgets were being revised. That's when reality started creeping in. This wasn't the endless fountain they'd been promised. The bombshell dropped when financial records from LIV's UK entity became public. The entity handling non-US events had suffered $400 million in losses just in 2023, but that was only part of the story. LIV Golf Limited claimed losses of $590 million in 2024. Total losses from 2022 through 2024 hit $1.4 billion. Not million, billion. Each event was costing tens of millions and producing almost nothing in return. Those massive TV deals that were supposed to flood LIV with revenue never materialized. Major sponsors stayed far away. Insiders claimed the organization was hemorrhaging between 200 and 400 million yearly, with zero signs of slowing. Initially, everyone convinced themselves this was just the price of building something revolutionary. But this wasn't a startup building toward profitability. This was a ship taking on water fast. The television disaster hit like a freight train. Their big gamble was the CW network, a deal they swore would finally give them legitimate American exposure. This was supposed to be the turning point, but reality turned out brutal. Some CW stations flat out refused to air LIV events. Others dumped them into terrible time slots or replaced broadcasts with reruns. The numbers were devastating. Some broadcasts barely scraped 300,000 viewers across the entire country. Meanwhile, PGA Tour events consistently pulled multiple millions. One sports analyst said LIV's ratings look like late-night infomercial numbers. That's not just embarrassing, that's catastrophic. Even when LIV moved to Fox Sports in 2025, results didn't improve. An analysis comparing 7 head-to-head Sunday broadcasts found PGA events averaged 3.1 million viewers, while LIV struggled to average just 175,000. But the worst damage wasn't the ratings themselves. The real devastation was what those numbers triggered. Once ratings tanked, sponsors didn't just hesitate. They ran for the exits immediately. Major corporations pay enormous sums for eyeballs and exposure, and LIV wasn't delivering any of it. Multiple insiders confirmed that the moment those numbers came out, major sponsors pulled funding instantly. Some wanted nothing to do with political heat surrounding Saudi funding. Others were done dealing with constant chaos, endless rule changes, format flips, and schedules changing constantly. One frustrated sponsor admitted they had no clue what they were paying to be associated with anymore. That's when walls really started closing in. The public image was cracking, money was drying up, and then came what LIV feared most: their own players turning on them. These weren't anonymous journeymen expressing doubts. These were legitimate superstars who'd pocketed massive checks and were suddenly second-guessing everything. One insider described it perfectly, saying everyone was floating on cloud 9 when those wire transfers first hit. But once the buzz faded, they realized they'd traded prestige and legacy for chaos and a league nobody was watching. Even Rory McIlroy pointed out what he called their irrational spending. He noted it had been years without any return, and they'd have to keep spending enormous amounts just to maintain what little they had. Many contracts were approaching expiration, and desperation was becoming visible. Then came the merger announcement that flipped everything upside down. Out of nowhere, in June 2023, the PGA Tour and LIV dropped stunning news they were exploring a merger. Nobody saw it coming. LIV players found out through headlines. PGA players felt betrayed by leadership that promised to protect them. Within days, the US government jumped in with investigations. The initial deadline of December 31st, 2023 came and went with zero progress. More deadlines were missed. Even White House meetings in February 2025 produced nothing concrete. Whatever trust existed between rivals evaporated completely. Analysts started calling the merger exactly what it was: a desperate Hail Mary. Two struggling giants trying to save themselves before money dried up. When analysts dug into actual numbers, the picture looked uglier than imagined. Reports confirmed LIV was hemorrhaging at least $200 million annually, with some estimates closer to $400 million yearly. Add in monster contracts, constant private jet travel, massive event budgets, and ridiculous marketing spending, and insiders whispered what became obvious: something had to give soon. Whispers spread that Saudi money wasn't flowing as easily anymore. Players noticed things. Bonuses that arrived like clockwork were suddenly delayed, staff budgets were being cut, events looked noticeably less flashy. One person close to the situation said you could literally feel the shift. The vibe had fundamentally changed. Even team managers who bragged about unlimited backing were quietly warning players to watch spending. Behind closed doors, people questioned how long Saudi funding could realistically continue. The Saudis had financial resources, but patience was another story. If the league couldn't prove it could eventually stand on its own, investors might tighten the tap. For a league built on lavish spending, that shift could trigger a meltdown. Tension reached new levels when reports surfaced that several high-ranking executives were stepping down or being pushed out. Publicly, they called it restructuring. Insiders said it looked like panic management. Players were losing faith. Sponsors had fled. Even broadcasters questioned whether LIV could survive another season. The image of endless luxury was cracking fast. Those private jets, champagne parties, all-access glitz, it all started feeling forced. One top player allegedly said it didn't feel the same anymore, and that's when silence from leadership became deafening. No clear answers, no solid direction, just nervous smiles and scripted interviews, while everyone prepared for the worst. And then came the bombshell. December 2025, Brooks Koepka officially announced he was leaving LIV immediately with a year remaining on his contract. This wasn't some fringe player. This was a 5-time major champion, one of the biggest names who jumped to LIV in 2022. His departure sent shockwaves through golf. Official statements cited family reasons, but everyone could read between the lines. Sports Business Journal had reported weeks earlier that there was legitimate chance Koepka would sit out the entire 2026 LIV season, using it as a gap year to serve a 12-month PGA suspension. The goal would be returning to PGA by August 2026. The massive caveat was that Koepka would forfeit nearly $20 million. That's not a decision anyone makes lightly. Koepka's performance throughout 2025 had been rough. He finished 31st in LIV standings. He missed cuts at 3 of 4 majors. He hadn't won a tournament all year. Back in March, he'd admitted publicly he didn't know where he'd be going once his contract expired. The uncertainty was eating at him. He'd been one of the first massive names to jump in 2022, reportedly signing a deal worth well over $100 million. Walking away from $20 million speaks volumes about what he was experiencing inside LIV. Now here's where everything stands. The PGA Tour rejected a $1.5 billion investment from Saudi Arabia's PIF. The reason? Because under those terms, LIV would continue existing separately. The PGA had already secured $3 billion from Strategic Sports Group in January 2024, including heavyweights like Mets owner Steve Cohen and investment funds backed by the Bezos family. That cash injection meant PGA no longer needed Saudi capital. They could wait out the stalemate and let LIV burn money until the Saudis got tired of funding it. Meanwhile, LIV CEO Scott O'Neill confirmed the uncomfortable reality in December 2025. He and PGA CEO talk often. They're friends from business school, but they are absolutely not in any serious negotiations whatsoever. O'Neill has talked about envisioning a new world order, where PGA dominates in the US while LIV dominates everywhere else. Coexistence, not convergence. That's not a merger strategy. That's Cold War doctrine. The message from PGA players has become clear. They're done with merger speculation. They want 2 distinct tours. 0 shared events outside the 4 majors. The civil war that tore golf apart has ended. The Cold War that replaced it has frozen solid. Perhaps the most revealing moment came from Jon Rahm, who signed with LIV for a reported $300 million. When asked about potential agreement between leagues, his response was stark. We don't know. No one knows. That's not confident swagger. That's uncertainty. Other players are reportedly skipping optional events, citing minor injuries or vague reasons. That's not confidence. That's self-preservation. That's a roster hedging bets and preparing exit strategies. The real shift has come from the Saudi PIF itself. Multiple insiders claim the PIF is finished pouring endless cash into a financial black hole. They want tangible results. They want LIV to stand on its own, generate real revenue, and prove it's not just an expensive experiment. But that creates a massive problem, because LIV has never shown it can survive without enormous Saudi money injections. And now, with pressure rising, the countdown to harsh reality might have begun. LIV's been on life support since day one. And now, the ones holding the plug are asking tough questions. Players are feeling that heat. Some are smiling for cameras while quietly testing waters elsewhere. Others obsessively follow every PGA update, calculating how difficult the walk back would be. Several players have been strategically skipping optional events, offering convenient excuses. But everyone knows what that signals. That's not confidence. That's pure self-preservation. These aren't players comfortably cruising on guaranteed money anymore. This is a roster preparing contingency plans in case everything collapses. When you stack it all together, the failed TV deals, the sponsor exodus, the internal chaos, the staggering losses, the picture becomes frightening. Is LIV actually in serious trouble? Here's the truth. LIV isn't officially bankrupt yet. No court filing, no emergency press conference, no spectacular collapse. But warning signs are flashing bright red. Even diehard supporters are squirming, asking questions they never imagined. That early confidence and swagger has been replaced by quiet uncertainty and damage control. The revolutionary talk about changing golf forever has been replaced by excuses and spin. So where does this leave us? Maybe the merger somehow restarts and saves both leagues? Or maybe Saudi Arabia keeps pumping billions indefinitely. But there's another possibility nobody wants to acknowledge. We might be witnessing one of the most expensive sports projects in history slowly crumbling right in front of us. The cracks are visible, the pressure's mounting, and players who bragged about guaranteed money are realizing something harsh. Guaranteed money doesn't mean guaranteed security or legacy. LIV's future isn't what anyone imagined 2 years ago. The league that promised to change golf forever might go down as the one that burned billions without building something sustainable. Fame fades, cash burns faster, and legacy, that's what actually lasts when everything else disappears.